Hey, what's going on? Today I'll be showing you how to use the Lua Love2D game engine. To download it, love2d.org. Find the installer that works for your machine. Download it, install it, and you should be ready to go. If you want, you can add it to your path so you can run it from command line directly. The text editor I'll be using is Visual Studio Code, but Notepad++, Sublime Text, Atom, whatever, will probably work fine. Visual Studio Code can be downloaded at code.visualstudio.com. Choose a build. So the workspace, I have set up a folder called demo_love, and in here I have a main.lua file. This is the code that's going to be run when you first run the game. Here I've opened demo_love as a workspace in Visual Studio Code just by right-clicking and hitting Add Folder to Workspace, or by going to File, Open Folder. So once you've created main.lua, there are three functions that the Love engine uses that you're going to need to know about. The first one is love.load. Create a new function called love.load. I'm assuming you know a little bit of Lua. If not, it's pretty easy to follow. It is not a hard programming language. Syntax is relatively simple. Everything in love.load gets ran once when you first start the game. Inside love.load, you should handle loading resources or assets, whatever your game needs. The next function is love.update. This gets run once per game tick, and how often game ticks occur depends on how fast your machine is. I'm running a pretty decent build, so this will be very frequent. Next is love.draw. Everything in here gets run once per screen update. This also depends on how fast your machine is, but normally it gets locked to 60 or 30 frames a second. One thing to understand is that you shouldn't be doing any complex math or anything that takes too long inside love.draw to make sure your game can render things on screen as fast as possible. So let's get a player on screen. We're going to want a place to store our player data. So we'll make a local variable called player. We'll make this a table. This is table syntax in Lua. You just use an open curly brace and a closing curly brace. The data in here is accessed using key value pairs. We'll want an X location, a Y location, X velocity, Y velocity, speed, what direction the player is facing, and the sprites that the player character will use. We'll set these to nil for now. In love.load, we're going to want to change a setting for the graphics really quick. Nearest. What this basically does, it's like turning on point or no filter for sprite in Unity so that pixel art characters appear pixel perfect and the engine doesn't try to blur them or apply any kind of filtering to the image. In here, you'll notice I have a folder called assets. This contains all my character sprites that I'll be loading in the love.load function. So let's do that. I've copied all of these to my clipboard because it would take too long to type them out on video. What I've done here is I have a table using this open and closing curly brace. And in here I've listed the paths to all of the sprites that I'm going to use, the comma separating them each. That's all we're going to be doing for love.load. Let's move on to love.update. One important thing to know is how to get keyboard input. That's how you're going to move your character. You do this using love.keyboard. To check if a key is down, we use .isDown, which is a function. The function takes in a string. That string is what character you want to check for, or what key you want to check is pressed. Let's do left and right first. Let's make this an if statement. Use else if to check for the D key. And then we'll have another else. In here, we want to set the player's velocity and what direction they're facing. So one convenient thing about the love.update function is that it actually can take one argument. We'll call it dt. What it stands for is delta time. It's the amount of time that's passed since the last time the game was updated in seconds. Let's use this variable to calculate the player's x velocity. We use negative player.speed because the player is going left. We multiply it by dt so that if the game ticks are running really slowly, dt will be greater because the time passed since the last update will have taken longer. So this number will be greater, resulting in a greater velocity. So even if the updates are running really slowly and it's looking choppy, the player will still move the same distance. And here we'll set the player's x velocity to 0, so that when no key is being pressed, the player does not move on the x-axis. Of course, depending on what key the player has pressed, we want to change what direction the sprite is facing. Now we'll do the W and S keys. Now we'll make the player go up. Again, we use negative player.speed because as the player moves closer to the top of the screen, their Y actually decreases. And when they're not pressing W or S, we'll set their Y velocity to 0. Make sure we set the direction they're facing. Now we'll update the player's position using their velocity. Player.x equals player.x plus player.xvel. Player.y equals player.y plus player.yvel. Vel being velocity. Now all that's left to do is to draw the player on screen. First we want to set a background. We use the set background color function in Love.graphics. Set it to 1, 1, 1, 0. This is an RGBA value. All of the parameters go from 0 to 1, 1 being normally what you'd see as 255 in most image editors or when you're talking about RGB colors. So 1 here means 255 and 0 just means 0. So this is obviously white. So now all that's left to do is to draw the player on screen. This takes a little while to type up, so I've copied this line of code for convenience. So we're using the draw layer function in Love.graphics. This just draws a single layer from an array sprite. We've loaded in an array sprite or an array image here using Love.graphics.newArrayImage. It contains these images in it. This is layer 1, this is layer 2, 3, and 4. Second parameter is which layer to draw. We've used the facing property of player here. Next is the X position to draw the image at, the Y position, the rotation, and the scale. The rotation we're leaving at 0. The scale I've set to 2 and 2 because my image is 16 pixels by 16 pixels, and that can be kind of small. So we're basically multiplying the width and height of the image by 2. And that's it. Make sure you save. And to run it, you type love demo _love. This will only work if you have the love engine on your path variable. So here we have our character. I can move around with W, A, S, and D. That's it. Thanks for watching.